Hello and welcome to Hot and Heavy, the Elaine podcast. I'm your host, Shivani Desai. Today I'll be talking about Season 5, Episode 11, The Conversion. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing out there? I'm doing all right. I'm feeling very well rested today because, I've been having to get up at about 4 a.m. for the last couple of days due to a very exciting commercial shoot I was a part of. I booked a commercial for Wayfair, and it's also going to be airing around the Puppy Bowl. So it's like a Puppy Bowl Wayfair commercial, and it was awesome. It was such an amazing experience. But it did require me to be on set at 6:15 a.m. every day of the shoot, and it was about a 55-minute drive. So that meant I had to get up extra early for a couple of days. Totally worth it. We shot the commercial in the HGTV Dream Home in Colorado, which is in Morrison, Colorado, near Red Rocks. And wow, it was, the house was amazing, as you can imagine, and the whole experience was great. It was so fantastic. There were a lot of familiar faces on set because the production company was, it's a company I've worked with multiple times. And so it's just always nice to get to a set and recognize so many people. So anyway, it was, a really, really cool experience. There were 4 dogs on set at one point who they were supposed to, of course, do a bunch of commands on cue. It proved to be challenging, and I think that's just always the case. There's that old sort of saying in Hollywood, never work with animals or babies. And while there were no babies on this shoot, there were 4 dogs, and it was a little bit of work to get them to do what we needed, but eventually they pulled it off, and they were so adorable. Oh, I just loved it. I loved seeing those dogs. They were working though, so it was like I couldn't really, bother them too much. But that was my week, and it was a really exciting shoot to be on. I felt really lucky to get booked on that shoot because I think I may have talked about this a few weeks ago. I was going through a dry spell with my auditions, just nothing coming through. So this one was a big one and very, very fortunate, and I felt so lucky. Okay, let's get into this episode, The Conversion. The synopsis is as follows. Jerry freaks out about finding an unidentified fungus cream in his new girlfriend's medicine cabinet. The cream turns out to belong to her cat. Elaine has trouble taking her boyfriend's podiatrist job seriously. George converts to Latvian Orthodox for his girlfriend, who then proceeds to move away. A nun from George's new church becomes infatuated with Kramer. This episode was written by Bruce Kirschbaum. All right, we start out in a restaurant. George is out with his girlfriend, who he is so smitten with, he doesn't even mind if she gets the lobster. It's so expensive, $25. But he doesn't care. He doesn't even think about the price with her. She seems a little bit distracted, though. And then we find out why. She tearfully breaks up with George because of her parents. It's the difference in their religion. They can't get past that. She apologizes profusely. Can you ever forgive me, George? The actress here is Jana Marie Hupp. And she's best known for her role on the TV show Ed. She's also appeared in Friends and Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Honestly, she's not bad. She just doesn't really make an impact on me in this performance. She's fine. I do find the character, her name is Sasha, the character's name. I don't think we ever hear it, but I find her annoying. The sobbing and like the over-the-top emotion, I didn't really enjoy it. Anyway, the waiter comes over while she's sobbing and she orders the lobster through her sobs. George isn't too sure about that. Next, we are in Jerry's building. Elaine and Jerry are in the hallway, and Elaine is telling Jerry about the guy who asked her out. She said that, I told him that I jog, and he put his hand on my heart. And that causes Jerry to call that out. Like, wait, what? He put his hand on your heart? She says, Jerry, he's a doctor. Jerry points out that he's a podiatrist and that anyone can get into podiatry school. George got into podiatry school. You see Elaine kind of clock that. She's like, huh. A neighbor down the hall, this pretty blonde woman, exits her apartment and asks Jerry if he will be stopping by later. Oh, I'll be stopping. She exits and Elaine gives Jerry a little look. Well, we all can't be dating podiatrists. The actress here who plays that neighbor, whose name is Tawny, it's another character I don't think we ever hear the name, but she's named Tawny in the credits. Her name is Kimberly Campbell. This was her first TV role, and it appears from her IMDb profile that she really hasn't done too much since. I can't say I'm surprised. I'm sorry. I do not enjoy this actress at all. Her performance is pretty bad. I feel like this could have been a really fun role for a better actress, but I think Kimberly Campbell was just hired for eye candy. I don't know. Maybe Jerry thought she was hot and just wanted to make out with her in this episode. I don't know. But at any rate, I didn't really think she was that strong of an actress. Back to the scene, Jerry and Elaine enter Jerry's place, and George is laying on his couch in the dark. He says, "It's over." "Who let him in?" "Kramer." "What's on his lap?" "Lobster." George explains how he got dumped because he's not Latvian Orthodox. Elaine and Jerry are listening, kind of, but they're more interested in the leftover lobster that he brought. George really thinks he could have married this woman. And then Elaine suggests just talking to her parents. "I've met them," he says. "They're devout." He admits that on the way over, he even thought about converting to Latvian Orthodox. Why not? What do I care? I love that line. What difference does it make? He doesn't care. Elaine says, I think it would be romantic, and compares it to Edward VIII abdicating the throne to marry Mrs. Simpson. Oh, this sparks George's interest. Like King Edward, Jerry. King Edward. Elaine tries to calm him down. "Look, I was just joking around." Well, it's too late. He's really going to think about this. He exits, and Elaine says to Jerry, "So I guess this one's my fault." Oh, yeah. My take on this scene, we learn that Elaine is seeing a podiatrist. That is her plot for the episode. I love this little tidbit of George's past, too. It's both informative and insulting to George that he apparently got into podiatry school because anyone can get into podiatry school. Just a fun little tidbit from George's past. And I did look this up, that it is true. Podiatrists do not attend a traditional medical school. Also, clearly Jerry pauses at her comment about the podiatrist putting his hand on Elaine's heart because that's basically like putting his hand on her boob, which that's a pretty bold move. But you know what? We have seen Elaine's excitement about doctors before. The episode where George is in the hospital, he gets his tonsils out. She is instantly flirting with the curly mullet doctor in that episode. And then in the future, we know she dates an intern, but calls him doctor. It's Bob Odenkirk, which is super fun. So she's not going to hesitate to have a cute doctor sort of cop a feel of her heartbeat. Yeah, it's pretty clear. She's like, "Doctor, go ahead, feel my heart," which is right under my boob. I do love JLD's delivery of the Edward VIII line. Oh, that little O is so cute. Very perfect offhand comment that would send George down such an extreme path to convert to Latvian Orthodox. It's so perfectly done. And then, of course, at the end, Elaine acknowledging that this one's my fault. I just love that the implication there is that they should just know better than to spout off at the mouth in front of someone as unstable as George, because this could happen. He could do something as extreme as converting to a religion. All right, moving on, we are at Jerry's girlfriend's apartment. They're making out on the couch. And just a side note here, the kissing is so loud. It's very distracting and I can't stand it. I'm like, ugh. I don't have what is it called? I think misophonia, where it's like people have a phobia of just certain kinds of sounds. I don't have that, but in this particular scene with them kissing, the sound just gets under my skin. And she tells him, "You're a really good kisser. Have you always been such a good kisser?" Jerry makes some dumb joke about practicing his kissing when he was a kid. They take a break from making out. She goes to the bedroom, and Jerry needs to wash his sticky orange hands. While in the bathroom, we see Jerry nudge open her medicine cabinet and sees a little tube of fungicide and is immediately grossed out. Fungus? Next, we're at Monk's. Elaine, Kramer, and Jerry are at a booth. Jerry is telling them about the fungicide he found and that she could have fungus. Then Elaine asks, "Well, how'd you get out of there?" And he said, I just said I was coming down with the flu and had to go. And she says, "You know what? Why were you opening her medicine cabinet?" And Jerry says, "I did not open. I just nudged it a little. You were snooping." "Nope." He says, I did not break the seal. I wouldn't do that. Kramer admits that he would. He opens them all the time. Elaine's appalled. I trust people not to do that. Big mistake, Kramer says. Jerry asks Elaine to see if her doctor boyfriend knows what this is. Oh, now he's a doctor. Before he was just a podiatrist. But then Jerry makes the case that, well, since he's a podiatrist, this is what he does. He's knee-deep in fungus. No, Elaine says, no, I'm not going to ask him about funguses. Kramer corrects her. Fungi. My take on this scene got me thinking about snooping in people's medicine cabinets. And I honestly cannot remember if I've ever done this. I don't think I have. I don't have memories of doing this to people. I think mostly because I feel like when I use the bathroom in someone's house, a lot of times it's not the same bathroom that they keep their stuff in. But if I did, would I snoop? I doubt it. I don't know. I just don't think I would have that inclination. I love how unapologetic Kramer is about his snooping. I just love, he's like, Kramer, it's like you can tell a lot about a person by what's in their medicine cabinet. And so he's like, it's my right. I should be able to snoop. It's not a big deal. All right. And then last thing I want to say about this scene, when I was writing my notes about this scene, I was talking about originally how it's sort of a pet peeve of mine that I think a few times now we've seen Elaine make like grammatical errors or like say words wrong. And I'm like, she is a freaking writer. Why do they make her make these mistakes? It makes no sense. But then I was noticing as I was typing out my notes, when you make an error in a document, you get the little squiggly line to tell you that, hey, this is misspelled or it's not the right word. So when I was typing out funguses, I didn't get the squiggly line. So I was like, wait a second, why is funguses the right way to say plural of fungus? So I did a little search and turns out both fungi and funguses both are correct. So I stand corrected. My pet peeve does not apply because I think that Elaine chose to say funguses over fungi because she knew it was right as well. Elaine is so smart. All right, next we are at a Latvian Orthodox church. George is meeting with a couple of the priests and convinces them that he's very sincere about the religion and his desire to convert. They explain to him that he needs to study a couple of texts. He wants to do maybe an express conversion. These texts are very, very thick. A woman knocks on the door. It's Sister Roberta, and she tells the father that there's a man in the chapel. Oh, and he gives her permission to tend to him and introduces her to George. Sister Roberta is played by Molly Hagan, who has acted in numerous series. You may recognize her from Herman's Head, Law and Order. She was in a Friends episode, amongst many others. Her IMDb page is super long. She's great. I always enjoy whenever I see her in a show. There's just something, I don't know, there's something very comfortable about her on screen. She kind of has a calming presence to me. That's the best way I can describe it. And this is a super fun character. Just a few scenes, but I think she plays Sister Roberta beautifully. So back to the scene, she exits and the father explains that she's not yet a nun and she'll be taking her final vows the following week. We see Sister Roberta approach Kramer. He's the man in the chapel. And Kramer says he's there to pick up George Costanza, and she tells him, oh, well, he's in with the father. She introduces herself to Kramer, and he says, oh, it's a pleasure. She gazes at him sort of lovingly and says, mine. Ooh, she's got the hots for Kramer. Next, we are at Jerry's apartment. George is explaining to Jerry how he's going to convert, and that Brother Costanza is not going to tell Mother Costanza. He will be taking the vow of silence. Kramer enters with a slinky that was given to him by Sister Roberta. Then he tells the guys that, I think she liked me. He got a vibe from her. You picked up on a vibe from a nun. Kramer says, look, I have this power. I have no control over it. Kramer hears his phone and exits. And then Tawny stops by to see how Jerry's feeling. And Jerry does a pathetic fake cough. Oh, little better. Then she offers to help if he needs anything and then exits. George asks about her. Jerry explains that she's subletting Carol's place. But there's a problem. He found a tube of fungicide in her medicine cabinet, and he's very concerned. And then George points out, look, it may not even belong to her. It could be Carol's. We all have old stuff in our medicine cabinet. So we see a quick scene of Jerry going to Tawny's apartment. May I use the bathroom? And then next we have a few quick scenes. First, we're at Elaine's apartment. Now, we don't know the name of this doctor. He's just credited as doctor. So I'm going to call him Dr. Foot. She's asking Dr. Foot if he doesn't mind if she asks him a question about this fungicide. And he's like, no, Elaine, please, I don't mind. I'm used to it. I'm a doctor. And she corrects him. Well, podiatrist. He's like, huh? Well, Elaine was just saying, look, he went to podiatry school, not medical school, and she's sure podiatry school is grueling in its own way. You can tell he takes offense to this. He says, look, I chose to work with feet. He likes feet. Oh, no, I was just saying. Saying what? I love this little scene. JLD is so great here. I love I'm going to call it obliviously insulting she is. And then her quick realization when she sees how offended he is. I love that little shift in emotion. And I guess I have to really agree with what Jerry points out later. How could you say that? Like, why are you saying this to him, Elaine? What a dumb move. A few more quick scenes. We're back at Tawny's place. Jerry is in the bathroom searching for the tube. He can't find it. And finally he does right before she walks in with some soap. Next, we cut to another bathroom, the Costanza's bathroom. For whatever reason, George is in there studying his Latvian Orthodox texts, and Frank and Estelle are concerned because he's been in there for so long. I want to know what you're doing in there. Lots of yelling happens, of course. And then we have a quick scene of Sister Roberta at Kramer's door. I found another toy you might like. She's got it bad for Kramer. All right, next we are at Jerry's apartment. Jerry is quizzing George on Latvian Orthodox theology, and George doesn't know shit. He's like, I can't believe they're making me take this test. Elaine enters. Jerry asks her to take the tube of fungicide. You stole her medicine. And he's like, look, just ask him the next time you see him. Well, she's not sure if she's going to see him because they got into a whole thing about how podiatrists aren't real doctors. And once again, Jerry says, how could you say that to him? Elaine blames Jerry for this comment. What he said got her thinking. I mean, she's pro-foot. She's got nothing against the foot. Should I call and apologize? Jerry says, yes, he's a doctor. Then we see George writing the answers to his conversion test on his hand. That's not surprising. It is George, after all. Then Kramer enters. He tells Jerry Sister Roberta told him that she has feelings for him and she's even thinking about leaving the church. Ugh, this power he has. I'm dangerous, Jerry. I'm very, very dangerous. My quick take on this scene. It is so not fair for Elaine to blame Jerry here for her anti-podiatrist faux pas. I mean, come on. Clearly she's projecting because she knows she made the mistake, but she's like, I got to blame someone and I'm going to blame Jerry. I think we've all done that from time to time. All right, next we're at the church. The father is so impressed by George's test scores. The other priest comes in and whispers something into the elder priest's ear, and we do hear Kramer as part of what he's telling him. It's great. The father tells George he has some business to attend to, so George leaves and passes Kramer in the hallway. Kramer sits with the father and explains that he's just got this power with women. He's innocent in all this. And the priest understands. You have the kavorka, the lure of the animal. Help me, father, help me. Yes, yes. The priest says he will help him, so he gives him a list of things to buy, garlic and vinegar, etc. Next, we are in Jerry's hallway. Jerry is walking, wondering what this stench is in the hallway. And he figures out it's coming from Kramer's apartment. Knocks on his door. Kramer has garlic around his neck, just bathed in vinegar. He's trying to get rid of this kavorka. We see a quick cut to the church where Estelle's friend sees the baptism time for George Costanza. Estelle's son? The actress who plays Estelle's Latvian Orthodox friend is Darlene Cardin. She has one line of dialogue, but I didn't want to leave her out of my recognition of all the female talent on Seinfeld. Darlene passed away at the age of 91 in 2019, and she had 71 credits to her name, the last of which was in 2013. And her last appearance was playing a character named Eleanor in an episode of Liv and Maddie, which is a show that played constantly in my house about a year ago. Anyway, I think Darlene does a great job with her one line in this episode. Ba 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 bom 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 bom. We have a Gilmore Girls Seinfeld connection with Darlene. She played a cashier in the episode Cinnamon's Wake, which was from the first season of Gilmore Girls. Rory goes into Dosie's market because she wants to see Dean and buys lettuce and mousetraps, and Darlene brings her up. So that was very exciting for me. We haven't had a Gilmore Girls Seinfeld connection in a few episodes. So I literally was like looking through her credits and I was like, oh my gosh, we have one. It makes me so happy. And I'm sure it makes exactly 0% of you happy. So hey, you know what? It's just for me, I guess. Next, we're at the Costanza's house. Frank and Estelle are freaking out because George is converting. They think he's been brainwashed. Frank wants to know if this is the religion that mutilates squirrels. Oh, they're just having a total meltdown about this. But George is determined. He doesn't want to get out of it. There's a quick scene back at Jerry's building. Jerry sees Tawny exiting her place. He says hi and asks what's wrong. I'm tired. Apparently she didn't get any sleep from the scratching because her cat was up all night. Apparently he's got a skin condition. She couldn't find his medicine. Oh, it's your cat. What? Oh, nothing. Okay, so the mystery is solved. The fungicide was for Bonkers the cat. Back at the church, George is about to go in for his baptism. He's a little nervous and calls the father Fada. I don't know why that's so funny to me, but it is. It makes me laugh every time. On the street, we see Kramer approaching a woman because now he's done the whole anti-Kavorka ritual. So he's going to see if it works. He goes next to this woman hailing a cab and asks how she's doing. She turns to him and says, "Get away from me, you creep." Oh, yes, it worked. Now to get to Sister Roberta. The actress who is hailing the cab is Karen Rizzo. Not a lot of credits to her name. I love the way she tells Kramer off. I mean, what a fun little guest starring role. You get to be on Seinfeld in one scene, and that scene is with one of the stars of the show, and you get to tell him, "Get away from me, you jerk." Not a bad day for Karen Rizzo, I would imagine. All right, next we're at the church. The ceremony is wrapping up for George's conversion. The father asks Sister Roberta to do the final benediction, and she says no, she's not worthy of this religion because of her attraction to, and she sees the door open, him. Kramer enters. Everyone is so shocked, and they're all saying, "Kavorka, Kavorka." Next, we're at Elaine's apartment. She and Dr. Foote are making out on the couch. He's clearly forgiven her, but she keeps on reassuring him. You know, she's a big fan of the foot. He admits he probably got a little defensive. They both agree that the pinky toe is the best toe. They start kissing again. Her phone rings, and she has to get up to answer. Dr. Foote needs to use the bathroom. I'll meet you right back here. Jerry's calling to tell Elaine it was her cat, so he needs the tube of medicine back. We see Dr. Foote snooping in Elaine's medicine cabinet. She trusted him not to do it, but he did it. He sees the fungicide in her medicine cabinet and has the same reaction as Jerry. Fungus? My take on this scene, I love how Elaine is laying it on thick about how much she loves the foot. I mean, we will see Elaine kind of flip on this in a few episodes, specifically about the pinky toe, but I'll save that for that episode. I like the parallel between this scene and the scene with Tawny and Jerry, that "meet you back here" comment back on the couch to make out, and then the whole parallel between Dr. Foote and Jerry both getting grossed out by the fungicide, looking at themselves in the mirror. I like how they sort of, call back to that scene. And then this, the whole concept, I think is very funny for a doctor to be grossed out by the condition he treats. That could be an entire episode. A proctologist who hates butts. Dentists who are grossed out by mouths. I mean, that's an episode. And next, we're at the church. Sister Roberta is talking to Kramer. She doesn't feel the same lore. Oh no, what has she done? She's going to go back to the church. Not before telling Kramer, "By the way, you need to take a bath. You stink." And he's like, "Oh, yeah. And finally, there's a tag at the end of the episode. George's girlfriend is so flattered about his conversion. "Oh, you're so sweet, George." But she is going to Latvia for a year. Isn't it great? Never change, George. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break, and I will see you on the other side. Imagine this. You're driving along, and all of a sudden, your car decides to quit. So many of us have been there. It's stressful, and depending on where you're broken down, it can be downright scary. That's why you need Pinky Tow Service, a service that'll tow your car in a bright pink tow truck. Hi, I'm Pinky Towson, founder of Pinky Tow Service. As the daughter of a podiatrist and a real doctor, Let's just say my parents didn't give me a lot of options when it came to my chosen profession. There I was, a pimply-faced teenager who knew deep down that I didn't want to treat fungi or heart disease. Then one day, on the way back from a fancy podiatrist gala, the Foot Fet, my daddy's car broke down on a snowy highway. It was dark. The cars were speeding by, and with each passing minute, it was getting colder and colder. After about an hour, I saw the most glorious sight a little girl on the side of the road could see. A huge tow truck coming to save us. I even remember the driver. His name was Bonkers, but he may as well have been Superman to me. Mr. Bonkers towed my daddy's car and gave us a ride in his warm truck. I felt so safe. I felt so loved. And I felt something else. It was the universe. Yes, the universe calling me to do this. I had found my purpose. I knew it in my bones. I was meant to tow. If you would like to hire a Pinky Tow service, just call 555-IN-THE-PINK. That's 555-IN-THE-PINK. And the pinkest truck you've ever seen will come and save you. Pinky Tow Service. We'll take you wee all the way home. And we're back. Okay, so there were some deleted scenes, and they were basically the alternate endings to the episode. So one of them was that Elaine is on the couch with her boyfriend. They're making out, Dr. Foot and her, and she shows him the tube, and he identifies it as cortisone 4, and that, well, I wouldn't know a lot about that, Elaine. That's meant for cats. And so she's kind of like, oh my God, Jerry. So that's just sort of like this other alternative where he doesn't find the fungicide in her medicine cabinet and all that. So it's just kind of resolved with him saying, no, it's a cat medicine. And then there's this more elaborate alternate ending. Jerry is driving Bonkers and Tawny to Brooklyn because he's going to the vet. She made an appointment for him. She's never seen this cat so irritable, and, you know, he really needs this medicine. So they show this scene in the deleted scenes of Jerry and Tawny in his car, and she's sort of miming that this cat is in her lap and like won't stop moving, and she's getting really frustrated. And even Jerry's like, oh my God, this cat's going nuts. So he says, oh, you know, I believe my one friend had a cat who went through this, and we can stop by her apartment, just making this up so that they can go to Elaine's place to get the tube of medicine. And then meanwhile, at Elaine's place, we do see Dr. Foot in the bathroom of Elaine and finds the fungus and is grossed out by it. And so he's trying to leave. We see him go, I think I have the flu. I got to leave. And so she figures out, oh, he must have seen the tube, and tries to explain, like, no, it's not my fungus. But he doesn't believe her. He leaves anyway, just as Jerry is arriving. So they pass each other. And then Elaine yells after Dr. Foot, you opened my medicine cabinet, you podiatrist. And then off camera, we hear a cat starting to attack Dr. Foot. And Elaine's still yelling after him. Besides, it wasn't even mine. It was Jerry. Jerry brought me this tube. And then Tawny overhears that and comes over to yell at Jerry. You stole Bonkers' medicine. You opened my medicine cabinet. She's mad about both. And then Elaine's boyfriend is really getting attacked badly by the cat. And then he says, call a doctor. To which Jerry gives Elaine a look. Haha, he's not a real doctor. Hardy har har. It's a little over the top. It's a little slapsticky, honestly. I'm glad they went with the ending they went with. And also, I've already expressed how I'm not a big fan of the actress who plays Tawny. And the scene, the deleted scene where she's like in the car acting like there's a cat on her lap. I mean, the acting is just atrocious by her. So I'm wondering if that might have been a deciding factor. Like, guys, we can't show this. Anyway, it's not an easy thing to sort of mime that a cat is in your lap when there's no cat in your lap. So that's not an easy thing to do. And plus, this was her first time acting in a show. But I have to say, she's just, I don't think this episode needed any more of Tawny. So they made the right call. In the notes about nothing, they mentioned that JLD had co-starred in a movie with both Robin Williams and Billy Crystal. It was called Father's Day, and she starred in this movie around the same time, maybe of this episode, I think. And Father's Day was an adaptation of a French comedy. And this was a quote by JLD about working with Robin Williams and Billy Crystal. She says, "Billy and Robin are like a married couple. They are so in tune with each other and work so closely. In comedy, you have to be flexible, discard what doesn't work, and go on to something that does on a moment's notice. They are so creative, and you're just carried along." I loved that quote. I mean, what a thrill to work with those two geniuses of comedy. And I can only imagine, now I kind of want to see Father's Day. I might have to check that out because JLD, along with those two comedic geniuses, come on, can't be bad. All right, moving on to Contributor Corner. Big shocker. Greg sent in thoughts, you guys. It's not a shocker at all. Okay, this is what Greg had to say about the conversion. Elaine and Jerry eating the leftover lobster as George is pouring his heart out is a clever device to show how disinterested they really are in what he's saying as he stands right next to them. He has a different girlfriend in like every episode of this season, and yet this is supposed to be the one. I do like how Elaine is the one to suggest to convert as a joke, and then George runs with it. If she is his only female friend, it makes sense that he would follow her suggestion on matters relating to women, especially when she said she thought it would be romantic. Yes, that's such a good point. I did express how I like that it was Elaine who made the suggestion, but you're right. George would put more stock into what Elaine has to say in her perspective because I think she is his only female friend, certainly his closest female friend. So, which again, to the point I was making earlier too, like they really have to watch what they say around this guy because he will run with it like he does with the conversion. Greg's next thought, one of my favorite scenes is at Monk's when Elaine, Jerry, and Kramer discuss opening medicine cabinets at other people's homes. I enjoy these scenes in the series where they discuss what is proper behavior because they never all agree. It reminds me of the discussion about whether the dumper or dumpee gets to go to the party they both got invited to, aka to the Victor belong the spoils scene. It's very Seinfeld, and I'm surprised George wasn't there as well because he's a snooper. Oh, most definitely he's a snooper. Yes. This is the bread and butter of Seinfeld, discussing these types of social norms or behaviors. And so, those are always such a treat to watch. Doesn't surprise me Kramer's a snooper at all. And George, had George been there, definitely he'd be like, I've snooped a couple of times, All right, moving on, Greg says, it's funny to me how Elaine defends that her boyfriend is a doctor, even if just a podiatrist in the opening scene. And then later it swings to where she inadvertently says the same thing that Jerry had said to the podiatrist himself. She immediately backpedals so as not to hurt his feelings, but the damage was done. The following scene where she tells Jerry what happened is probably JLD's funniest moment in the episode. I love how she says, I have nothing against the foot. I'm pro-foot. It always eats at her when she feels like she may have hurt someone's feelings. And I like when she has those pangs of guilt. For sure. I focused more in that scene about how she was blaming Jerry for her faux pas. It's like, no, Elaine, you made the decision to not only have Jerry's comment seep into your brain and then you went ahead and said it to this man. Like, this is all your fault. You didn't have to do that. But yes, you're right, Greg. She did have pangs of guilt and she's trying to just get out of this. Like, oh, yeah, why did I even say that? I don't hate the foot. It's fine. All right, Greg's final thought. This episode is very much about George, and therefore Elaine doesn't get a ton to work with. The concept of having George convert while Kramer gets the sister to denounce at the same time is somewhat similar to what they did with the lesbians, Susan and her girlfriend, earlier in the series. I'd have loved for them to swap out some of this Latvian Orthodox stuff for more of Elaine and her guy. Perhaps more tacked on at the end when she finds out he snooped in her cabinet so that we would really see how she felt about him being a podiatrist. There needed to be better payoffs for her storyline. Right. So I went over those alternate endings where there is that version where she says, you snooped and you're a podiatrist. As she says podiatrist very much like an insult. So the ending that they ended up going with, it's so unresolved and there's really nothing paying off in her storyline, to your point, Greg. So while I support the less Tawny in the episode with that alternate ending, I also think that Elaine's storyline didn't get resolved and it sort of suffered for that. And yes, I agree with the scene swap idea for you. I think I have a couple of my own here at the end. Thank you so much, Greg, for sending in thoughts. If you would like to be a contributor to Hot and Heavy, please email me at elainepodcast@gmail.com. That's elainepodcast@gmail.com. And you are not obligated to participate every week. I just alert you to what episodes I need notes for. Here's a due date. Send in something if you want. And if you can't, you don't send in anything. Greg has been amazing in sending thoughts in every week. I fear he thinks he's obligated now, which, Greg, you really aren't, okay? Just if you need a week or two off, just please take it. But of course, I always love his thoughts. But please, if you would like to participate as well, be the next Greg, if you will, please email me, elainepodcast@gmail.com. All right, my favorite Elaine moments. I love her line when she's insulting Dr. Foote when she says, "You went to podiatry school," which I'm sure is grueling in its own way. She gives a little look after she delivers that line, and it's so funny, just kind of like raises her eyebrows a little bit. Again, it's the oblivious insult and then the realization of what she says. It's all so masterfully done by JLD. All right, and my final notes. I do love Elaine's plot. Once again, I feel we could have taken it farther than it went. I love the idea of both Elaine questioning if this podiatrist really fulfills her dream of dating a doctor, as well as a podiatrist who is grossed out by fungus. I think there could have been so much more kind of pulled from both of those parts of the story. So my scene swap idea, I think it's similar to Greg, just shave off a ton of the Latvian Orthodox conversion stuff for more of Dr. Foote and Elaine. Yeah, we just needed a little bit more balance there. I did want to point out all the cake in this episode. This episode always makes me crave cake. So there's that little, almost like a mini chocolate cake that George is enjoying with Jerry when he's telling him he's going to convert. I mean, it looks so gooey and chocolatey. It just looks amazing. And then Elaine is serving Dr. Foote cake when she insults him about being a podiatrist. It's just there's so much cake in this episode. I really want cake now. And this episode just proves there's yet another reason. There's another thing to add to the list about why Jerry or George would not be attracted to me at all. I mentioned a few weeks ago, I do have some toe fungus. It's very embarrassing and extremely hard to treat. God, I could not believe how hard this toe fungus is going to be to treat. And even after something like 2 years of possible treatment, it may not go away. So yeah, toe fungus sucks, you guys. So anyway, okay, sorry. I have toe fungus, I have a big nose, and I have man hands. So I would have no chance with Jerry or George. And not that this breaks my heart, but I just think it's fun to list off all the traits that would make me very unattractive to them. All in all, Elaine had a very fun storyline. Like I said, I really like her plot. I love to see her blow up these relationships. But given how sort of weak the other plots were in this episode, I just feel like her story deserved more screen time than it got. And I think that's all I can say about the conversion. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.